But one of the other things too, like I said, is like most people don't actually know what they're talking about, or they're just looking at what you're looking at, which is like, oh, you voted a certain way, so that means you don't care. When the
Well, hang on.
statistic,
Hang on. I'm not just saying that just you voted. I'm saying that like
that's the
somebody
example you
direct
used.
that is the example I used,
Yeah,
but
you
I
used a
I tried
voting
to
record.
caveat it. And I know I'll caveat it again though. Well,
Yes.
I'm not saying some guy just randomly flippantly saying like, "Oh, you said you care about children, but then you voted against the child tax care credit. That means you're not actually a Christian." I'm not talking about that.
Okay.
I'm talking about like they say they're again for like feeding the poor or something,
Mm-hmm.
and then objectively speaking, a policy comes along that no matter how much you read about it or look about it,
Yeah.
they just are against feeding the poor in service of like, I don't know, making their church look more beautiful or something.
Okay.
Like that's just like that's an instance where like objectively speaking, and goes back to what I was saying before.
Mm-hmm.
I think non-believers can critique Christians and that be just fine. Now, I think I would probably agree with you that the way that happens generally isn't the most productive.
Yeah.
So I think we actually have a lot of agreement here
Yeah. Yeah.
because me critiquing Christianity is going to be way different than some Joe Schmo that just doesn't do any critical thinking about Christianity at all.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think you probably give me credit that even as much as I'm against Christianity, it's not like I'm not thinking about it.
Yeah, for
It's
sure.
not like I'm not considering
Absolutely.
art. You know what I mean? So I think we agree
Mm-hmm.
that like I would just have a hard time like I hate to make these kind of statements, but I
No, you're
actually
good.
don't think you think this because I don't think you think that I can't make a critique of Christianity that isn't valid just because I'm a non-believer or I can't make a critique of like how Christians are acting. I don't think that makes any sense at all. I think as long as you have the caveat that I've done critical thinking about it, I've done research about it, et cetera,
Mm-hmm.
I think it's totally fine. And that happens all the time. I mean, that literally is what it means to critique systems, to critique friends, to critique people we know on the street is you just obviously as long if you should know what you're talking about. You shouldn't just flippantly critique them based on
Mm-hmm.
like a TikTok style analysis, right? To
Mm-hmm.
make it kind of a funny frame.
Yeah. Yeah.
But if you're analyzing what they say and you still disagree, well then I I don't see anything wrong with that.
Yeah.
In fact, not doing that would be counterproductive.
Okay. Well, I mean, like, again, I think it's unproductive in general because, like, most, like, I'm not gonna take any theology or any uh insight from somebody who doesn't believe the book I believe. You know what I mean? Like that. It's
Wait,
that's
why? Why?
because, like I
I mean,
said,
theology.
because, like I said, like most of the time don't hear what I'm not saying. I'm not saying that like you have to be in the strict theological lane that I am. I'm not saying that. I'm saying there has to be some level of agreement on some things because without that, there's no validity. Like what I said earlier, like a progressive Christian has a such a different theological framework, and a lot of it is based on presuppositions or misuses of scripture or I think it's just I think Christian progressivism, like I would assume that that quote from that faith leader, without seeing it, without knowing it, I'm going to assume that that's a progressive Christian. Uh, and so it's like most of the time, their exegesis, their hermeneutic of how they study scripture is garbage. So like I'm not listening to them. I'm not listening to that. For somebody to to not know some of the basic tenets of faith and then try to critique it, I'm not listening to that. And it's like I think people just need to stay in their lanes more. Is what I'm trying to say, because most of the time, like I said, like most of the time they don't understand that Christians are actually are doing a lot of the things that they're trying to critique people for. They're trying to say, oh well, Christians aren't doing this and they're not doing this. Most of the time, that's not even true, and so that's where
How
I'm.
is that not? How is that not exactly what you're doing by critiquing Renee Good's Christianity? Because you're saying she has a theological view that's wrong,
Mhm.
and she would probably say you would say that about her. She might say the same thing about you.
Yeah,
So
but
there's an underlying
so here's
assumption there that
the
whatever.
and again this is
Hey, real quick, real quick. I assume that
okay.
obviously whatever you're going to assume under that whatever your theological view is right, and there's some kind of like maybe not objective, but near objective way of viewing theology that if you don't fall under, you just shouldn't be taken seriously. So I understand what you're
Absolutely.
saying there, but like
Yeah,
I'm not sure. I don't know how you could ever grow intellectually without and this is take this as a question because I'm not saying you're saying this,
for sure.
but like would like if you're going to deny now this is a little bit different because this is historicity and not theology,
Hmm.
but if you would deny the perspective of someone like Bart Ehrman, for example, on the historicity of the Bible
Hmm.
or the New Testament or
Hmm.
whatever, I mean that would just be silly to not even consider what he's saying. I mean he's one of like the as far as I understand one of the leading New Testament scholars.
Hmm.
So it just sounds like to me like you're shutting out perspectives that could change your mind, and I'm not sure why you would do that.
Mm. No, it's not that I'm not it's not that I don't listen to it. Like I said, it's like I think people get offended when you don't, and this might go back all the way back to what I was originally trying to say. I think people get offended naturally when you're not listening to them. So like for example, those protesters, and I'm trying to bring it back to the original
Yeah.
kind of thing that we were doing. These protesters who go in and try to protest this church. Um like to think that that's going to be effective in changing the perspective of those people is it's not going to work. And
Well, that might not be their goal too.
yeah, like I said, and
You know
we
what I
could
mean?
talk there's a certain level of effectiveness because we're talking about it and it's made national headlines and all of that stuff,
Yeah.
which is what I said at the beginning. um and that's what I'm saying is like anybody has the right to say anything, and people have opinions on everything, and I think that's one of the I think it's a beautiful thing about like online connectivity, social media, and that kind of stuff. It's also very annoying because everybody has opinions about everything, and some people don't know what they're actually talking about. And so like I think that's where I can get really really frustrated.